Hey folks, Danny here. You're listening to Noclip. This week, I'm first of all joined by Frank Howley. Frank, quick update: is your part of California on fire yet?
No, we're okay over here in San Diego.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, I've probably just dated this podcast because this isn't going up for 2 weeks. So, I mean, hopefully it's still not on fire in 2 weeks. You know? All right. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not just here joined by Frank. Of course, Frank, community manager and producer here over in Noclip. We're also delighted to be joined live from Europa. Jay Tholen, creator of Hypnospace Outlaw, one of the most... avant-garde, surreal internet simulator. I find it difficult to explain what this game is and why you should play it, which is why we're delighted to have him here to talk about it for like an hour. Jay, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for the introduction.
Of course. First of all, congratulations, not just obviously on the game. It's been a while since it originally came out on sort of PC platforms, but you've just announced as well that it's coming out on PlayStation 4 and Switch. And Xbox One Game Pass. I believe by the time this podcast goes up, they will all be available to purchase or play, I guess, if you're on Game Pass. How long have you been sitting on that announcement? Is it nice to finally get it out there?
Yeah, it's nice. It took a while to actually develop the ports because the engine we chose is not very good at that. So we haven't actually been sitting on it that long, but it feels good for it to be out finished.
Yeah, it feels like an interesting game to play on a console. I'm so happy to have this podcast. Frank has been talking about this game and how much he loves it for so long. And I finally jumped in, and I listened on the Bombcast a while ago and was like, had it in my to-do pile. And I finally jumped in a couple of weeks ago. And I've never played anything like this. Like, I've never played a game that I have enjoyed so much and also kind of makes me feel a little bit like sick with nostalgia. Like in a good way, and also in kind of this like bad way. Like, God, how far we've come in the wrong direction.
Right.
It's gonna be fun to see that translated onto a console. Like, I could like playing that on a Switch. It's just gonna be the wildest shit.
Yeah, it's actually kind of weird. It feels weird holding it because it feels wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. The controls are great. We worked really hard making them translate. And on Switch, touch is very nice.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And there is a motion pointer, but I prefer touch. But it feels strange moving desktop icons around and stuff on a console. It's kind of surreal, but yeah.
Okay, before we get into this anymore, right, because I really want to paint a visual picture of what this game is, because we're going to talk about it for the next best part of an hour or so. And sort of having an idea of what exactly we're dealing with here is important for the folks who maybe haven't played it or seen a trailer and stuff. I want Frank, first of all, to explain what the game is, because he sold it to me really well. And then I want Jay to do it as well. So Frank, you've got an elevator back in the day when we had elevators and we were in closed boxes with people, and you want to pitch this to somebody. What exactly is Hypnospace Outlaw?
I've just been telling people it's the best game I've played in like the past year. It is a 1990s internet simulator, also detective game. You're policing the internet, but mainly you're just surfing the craziest GeoCity pages ever. You are overwhelmed with brilliant, like cheesy animated GIFs, incredible MIDI music. It's wild. It really does feel like jumping into a time machine, or the Internet Archive, one that every page is like synced up perfectly. It's heaven. It's amazing.
How does that sound about right, Jay? What do you think?
That sounds right to me. Someone online, and I don't know if in a review or a forum post or something, described it as a .com era period piece or something. And that kind of is more or less right, because I was kind of living in that era while developing it. I don't know if you remember these old shows like Computer Chronicles or Net Cafe was a public broadcasting show about computers, and like the title screen was like in a browser window, and but I watched, they're on the Internet Archive, and every morning with breakfast I would watch one of those.
Oh, you're kidding.
And and I was wearing, I'm still doing it a little bit, but I was wearing like software developer from the 90s looking clothes. I don't know if you remember this video with Bill Gates or whoever. No, not Bill Gates, but someone from Microsoft. Like they're like dancing.
Oh
at the Windows 95 launch.
Yeah, what's his name? Yeah, the developers guy, right?
That guy.
Steve Ballmer, right? Steve Ballmer.
Yeah. So it was like method acting in some way, but for making a computer game.
Well, how do you mind me asking how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 33.
Okay, so I'm 34. So we sort of, that was, I guess, our introduction to the internet, like those early days, like Netscape Navigator, web cafes, all that stuff. You would have been like in your early teens, mid-teens, right? When this whole
1999 was when we got the internet, and for 2 years before that, we had a computer but no internet. So I think in some way, this game might be more about the pre getting the internet thing, where you're dreaming about what it's finally going to be like to get on the World Wide Web and talk to people from Australia, and like, you know, all the TV commercials at the time depicted it as flying through like tubes, 3D tubes on a surfboard. I don't know, cyberspace, highway, information superhighway, and like my mind was like blown. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be so awesome, and then, you know, there's a little disappointment when you finally get it, and you're like, not really what it looked like in the movies, but you can talk to people from Australia, I guess.
God, that's fascinating. I had a similar experience so I worked, before I did game stuff, I was a web developer, but I started making websites when I was like 13 or 14, because we got a computer in the house and my brother was doing computer science in college. But the same thing, we didn't have it hooked up to the internet for at least 2 years, but he had given me a HTML book. So I'd spent like 18 months building websites, having never been on a website. So I'd made all these like Half-Life fan sites and all this stuff. And then I went on the internet and I was like, oh, like it was like all uncompressed, like JPEGs, like lossy BMP files, like way too much text. And then, you know, it wouldn't work. It would only work in my resolution. And then I went on the internet and I was like, oh, this looks totally different to what I imagined.
I did almost the exact same thing. I didn't have a book. I thought, oh, when we first got a computer, you know, I saw on TV what websites looked like and stuff. So I opened MS Paint and I drew all the text in there, just a giant MS Paint file that was my web page. And then I was thinking, yeah, when I get on the internet, I'll just put it up there and all the links will work, and that's how it works. So I had a whole website ready, and I was very disappointed when I couldn't put my web page up, really. So yeah.
Upload it.
The Dragon's Lair was what it was called.
The Dragon's Lair. Wow, that you would have had the copyright hammer coming around for that.
Oh
one,
yeah, probably.
I imagine. Frank, what was your experience of early internet stuff? Because you're like a shade younger than us, but like, I feel like you still live in the 90s.
Yeah, like honestly, my real entryway into internet, like, because I had a brother and we had a computer, I would go to like my dad's office because they had internet, and I would print off like Earthworm Jim guides off GameFAQs. like I used the computer just as a tool to get cheats. But my real entryway was a little post 90s. It was like 2001 Newgrounds era, which was just like, like Flash and Shock websites. Like that was what I was consuming as a kid. But like, it always stuck with me. Just I love how, again, like, it's so authentic and cheesy how the early internet is. Like, I love how Jay perfectly said, like, people are so hopeful, and when you log into Hypnospace, it does have like those like CompuServe like welcome to the internet videos of just like, look at all the fun you can dive into. And like, I guess like, I feel like I never really got to purely live as an adult in that world, and that's why Hypnospace connects to me. It's like, oh, again, it feels like being a time traveler on the internet. I guess what I want to ask Jay is, like, I'm curious, like, Hypnospace Outlaw seems to depict a very specific era of the internet. There's so many ways we can get into it, but like, how did you land on this is the zone I want to build for my internet for Hypnospace Outlaw?
Probably the thing that I experienced the most was sort of the era that I wanted to build it around. And there's some inconsistencies, like, of course, it's not supposed to be accurate by any means to anything, but and I would also say it kind of covers maybe 1997 until 2001 or 2, maybe just pre-Flash or pre the dominance of Flash. all that, because there's new metal, there's like a fake Linkin Park and all that. So it kind of covers this span of, when I first got on the internet, because I think that's what I could maybe most accurately depict. So I guess that's how I picked the time period.
It's worth probably clarifying as well that this version of internet is taking place while people are sleeping, right? This is like they are connecting to this network in their dreams, being able to like use this time that would otherwise be used for. I hate sleep because I hardly ever dream, so I always feel like it's a waste of time. So like the idea of like this is a place where you can go and connect with people while you're doing the most lonely act possible. And yeah, so it has that like it feels a little bit to me like when you watch a like 70s like pulp movie where it's like, oh, this is how I remember the 70s. Like this isn't necessarily like all the most saturated, like brightest colors of the 70s are turned up and all the sort of the like noise is left away. And this feels
right.
like that kind of where it's kind of how it's to me, it's almost as if the people who made Encarta designed the internet.
Right. Yeah. And it has a lot of similar, it pulls a lot from CD-ROM, multimedia CD-ROMs, maybe just as much as the web. Like the Floyd Steinberg dithering, we use a lot on the graphics. In fact, all the graphics are processed through that. I think I made a 108 color palette. It's like a Hypnospace safe palette, and all the graphics are processed through that to give it all a somewhat consistent look. Because it's the internet, so it can be anything on there. So I felt like we had the problem of how do we make it all feel like it, I don't know, is in this other history, in this other internet service.
Right.
So
because that's the problem with mixed media art. A lot of the time is then things feel like inconsistent, like they're not actually connected in any way. But videos and GIFs and everything in this they have the same sort of aesthetic to them. Even your trailer, did you use that dithering on the trailer you did?
Yeah, the trailer, I exported all the frames to PNG files and then applied that dithering to all the frames and then re-imported it into the video editor. I think all the trailers do that.
Wow.
It's just really
commitment to the bit.
Have to do that. To do that. Yeah. But you're right. It's more what some kid may have imagined that what the internet would be like than what it actually was. Though it does explore a little bit of the disappointment of the jank and the maybe the some of the ill-advised decisions internet.com era startups were making back in the day, and also with the sleeping conceit. I guess that can be a little bit more of a modern commentary or something on. It didn't start that way. I just thought it sounded like a cool idea. Oh, you wear a headband while you sleep and use the internet. It was originally set in the future, actually.
All right.
But we decided, well, why does it look so old? I'll just set it in an alternate history. I'm not going to bother justifying why it looks so old, even though it's $21.99 or something. But yeah, so it's supposed to be more of a, just a fantasy, stylized take on the whole era, mishmash, everything mishmashed together a little bit. So
I was one thing I wanted to ask about, another element of Hypnospace, like visual identity is perfect. Another thing that you're bombarded with, and I love, is the soundtrack for the game, which is all. I mean, you're also the composer for the game, correct?
Yeah, the main composer. We had a lot of other people contribute.
Yeah. But. Can you talk about like just how you formed the musical identity of the game? Like, are all the, because I don't know too much about MIDI music production, but like, how did you arrive at this like huge collection of different sounds, and were they accurate to the era? Were you guys also just experimenting? Like, how did that all come about?
So, General MIDI or like a lot of sound cards had their preset collection of samples that then the MIDI file would pull from and play those samples when it needed a guitar. Then you'd have the same like really short guitar sample. So I effectively made our own collection of these samples for every instrument, and we made our own sequencer and it generates an array. But if you look at it, it looks like part of the game. I just got a message before this because it's stylized. I just got a message before our talk here from someone saying, hey, is the sequencer in the console versions? But it's really just a dev tool,
right,
even though it looks like part of the game. But but that really helped, I think, get in the brain space to do that. And but you can, when you buy the game on the computer, on Windows anyway, you can go in the game directory and there's, I think, pageeditor.exe, which opens the page builder, which is the tool used to make pages. It's a drag and drop thing. And there's also tune sequencer, Hypnospace tune sequencer. And you could open that on Windows and make your own songs if you want. They're not super supported, so good luck. But that's what we use. And I think that also contributed to the consistency you were talking about earlier. And a lot of this was just by accident. Like, we just thought, oh man, wouldn't it be cool? The whole first year and a half or so of development was just building this big internet. And wouldn't it be cool if we put this and that in the game? And, you know, the Professor Helper, like Bonsai Buddy-esque guy. And by that point, the year and a half point, it was just a mess of a big internet with no actual game in there, which now I think may have been a good thing, because if we had been more reasonable, I don't think it would have had as much minutia and as much just small potatoes lore, like, oh, Sandy, she's secretly friends with this dude from another zone. And it was just something we massaged without there being a game yet because we were procrastinating the hard part.
That's fascinating. I love the idea that you sort of did the thing that whenever we talk to like AAA studios who make like open world games, they bake this big world before they start to like really dive into like quests and like where stuff is. You just made your internet and then it was like, okay, we better put a game in here.
Do the game part. Yeah, because we even got signed without the game part in it.
Just based on the aesthetic?
Yeah, he messed around with it. Now, that said, we took it to quite a few publishers, or I did, I guess, at Gamescom and elsewhere. And everyone's like, what's the gameplay loop? Where's the loop? And then this was the only dude to like not care about that, which, and I think also was good that he had faith that we would be able to do that. I have to credit Zalavier Nelson Jr., at Rit Nelson, WRIT is his Twitter, but he's a narrative designer. And after we had created this mess of a giant internet and some vague concepts for where the story might go, he joined the team because we desperately needed him to turn it into like a beginning to end story with some progression. And he really helped guide that. So I have to give him a lot of credit. And also Mike Lash, the programmer, anything that feels good in the game to click on, or a lot of the weird little features in the OS are all his thing. So those two dudes really are instrumental in making it what it became. So yeah,
that's excellent. Yeah, it does feel snappy. Everything, and it feels fun to be in there, to like interact with it. You know, I worked for a while as an AOL call center rep, and it gave me sort of like mad flashbacks to using all that stuff for good.
Did
or
you
ill.
have? Was it for help?
I was in sales and billing. My friends were in tech support. That's where you get all the really weird stories. My one was in like people would, you know. Well, actually, weirdly enough, moderation came in every now and again, because it was mostly like, oh, you know, my internet shut off, and like, oh, your credit card was out, and then we put the new one in. Mm-hmm. But every once in a while, people would, you know, because there were zones in AOL, right? So but people would be talking to one, and they'd say something like either racist, or they were like flirting with someone, which you weren't allowed to do in the public chat rooms. And like then they'd call up and it'd be like, why did you block me? And I'd have to explain to them, because there was a log like what they had done, which was the wildest shit. And like I remember one time one dude was just like, which you'd literally read out the line, because the moderators, I didn't even put two and two together to how this is so much like what you do in Hypnospace, but the moderators would click on a thing, and that would be like the stamp of like what they did. So you'd read out the line to them. And one time I had a dude call up, and his wife was on like the other phone in the house because she wanted to know why he got banned again, because he was like habitually doing this, but he was flirting with someone else.
Oh no!
And I had to, like, I was like, oh no, he was just cursing, like, and then
you were helping.
I know, I felt no, and then she went off the phone, and he was like, was it a conversation I was having with like such and such? He mentioned it. I just felt so awkward. I was like 19. I didn't want this. We used to have old people call up at nighttime just to have someone to talk to, though. That was the other side.
Yeah. I worked at a place called WebStarts. Very strange place.
You made that up. That's not a real company.
WebStarts. I think it's one of the few remaining, like, not really mobile friendly WYSIWYG page editor things.
Wow.
But it was just weirdly in a rural part of Florida near where I lived. I lived in the middle of nowhere. So it was kind of a lucky break, I guess, that this existed. And it was this relatively wealthy guy's mansion, or I don't know if it's a mansion. That's relative, I guess. But to me, it's a mansion. And when I pulled in, everyone had Ron Paul bumper stickers everywhere. and I pull in and I go up there and it's you. He wanted to be the only dude to have 24-hour support with a WYSIWYG page editor. And, of course, we had all the people who were like, what? Open your browser, sir. And then he'd be like, is that the Yahoo? And all this. So it was very... A lot of that, though, because I had access to the whole database of WebStarts pages. And I think a lot of that... in fact, some of it pretty directly made its way into Hypnospace. There was a lady, we could take commissions if we wanted to help design a page for people.
Oh.
There was a lady who was a psychic, and the psychics page in Hypnospace is pretty directly inspired by this lady. What happened is I made her page, and I realized that she wanted to dictate everything to me.
Okay.
She would not, and I even had to log into her account and everything, and it was very strange. And
like, she wouldn't send you an email with the text. She wanted to like tell you what the writing was.
She would send very weird, curt, strange emails, and I made her page. By the way, with the MIDI file of Bewitched. I don't know if you remember this show playing, and the Bewitched font, everything had to be Bewitched everywhere. And if you folks don't know what Bewitched is, it's an old sitcom, listeners. Sitcom.
It's like husband and wife, but she's a witch, kind of.
Yeah, but she's a witch. Yeah. And then I left that job. It was my first real job too. Before that, I did really bad telemarketing, or I dropped out of high school. So that was while I was learning game dev on my own, but whatever. But anyway, I left that company to do the Dropsy Kickstarter, which was my first game. And because I thought it was going to succeed, and it really did not. But whatever the case, I left the company, and then I get a call from them, from WebStarts, and they're like, who is this person? You made them a website, and they won't stop calling us. And I realized that I had some phone messages on my cell phone, because I very wisely gave her my cell phone number.
Oh, no.
And I just was not in the habit of listening to these. And I actually have a recording of it still, which I probably shouldn't share with anyone. Maybe I'll show you guys after. But and she's like, hey, you queer little gay guy. Oh no, that was a different message. She called me a queer little gay guy.
Whoa.
And she's like, hey, if you don't get back on here and help me with my website, I'm gonna go to church and light a candle for you to break your neck.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I have a recording of that.
Wait,
And,
she was a psychic, but she was like a Christian psychic?
I think she was like a when it's convenient Catholic,
Got it. Yeah.
Traditionally Catholic something. I don't know what she was, but
yeah, I grew up in a country full of traditional, convenient Catholics. That's a Good way of putting it.
I don't think she actually practiced. But then I got another call. This story is so crazy. But I got another call from a younger lady who sounded almost just like her, but younger. And she's like, what are you doing? What are you doing taking advantage of my mom? You charged her. I don't understand what you're doing. She can't even read, is what she said. And I'm like, what the heck? So she was trying to make a living.
Right.
She set up a 1-800 number through me. Was the only conduit through her. She had me set up Google AdWords and all this stuff.
So that's why you were dictating stuff.
That's why I was dictating stuff. And also I found out that everything she was dictating more or less matched some other famous psychic's whole story. And she was just, everything was ripped from all the, it was such a, but that directly inspired. And in Hypnospace, you can also ban a psychic. And it's the story in Hypnospace is a little sweeter. I decided there's someone who's sort of in love with the psychic, and depending on if you ban her or not, the person will be happy or sad by the end of the game. But you spoilers, I guess this is such a tiny spoiler but I was going to make it where if you ban her, then then your bosses sent you the actual clip of like a edited down clip of the message I got.
Right.
Where she's gonna light a candle to break your neck because you took her money and stuff. But I decided on the very small chance that whoever this is finds the game, and also it's just not. It's kind of taking advantage of someone who might be poor and might be mentally ill.
Right,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that, but that puzzle was ready for me to drop that in there, but I just couldn't do it.
That's
pretty direct.
That's wild. I mean, Frank, you were talking a lot about like this is how conversations about this game kind of revolve. It's about the pages. It's about these characters and these like instances, and like I guess we should sort of explain a little bit that like what you're doing in this game is kind of like acting as a moderator, doing copyright infringements, taking down pages that are doing illegal activity. You've got an inbox. You're kind of basically going on missions. It's almost like it's in some ways a point and click game, but it's not. It's like a sort of an interface game. But like it's the joy is all of these characters and these bizarre stories. Frank, tell us about some of the ones that sort of shone to you.
The one that like my favorite page in it is Teen-topia because it mirrors like all like middle school level cliques of just people like cyberbullying everything. And there's a specific character in his webpage, like Zane Rocks, that is like my homepage. Like that is like I think it's so funny. Can you like was there any like key inspiration with that, or was it just tapping into like that juvenile fun on the internet? Like I want to dive into Teen-topia because there's so much in there that's so funny. Can you talk about the experience of building that?
Yeah, Zane Rocks might have been middle school me a little bit, or me like a little bit. I was never that kind of dude, but shards of me are in there. The Zane Rocks is probably a lot of people put together that I had experience with in school. They were more my tormentors, but he has like a edgy web comic, with him blowing demons up or whatever, I don't know, with a double pistols or whatever, and of course the fake Linkin Park. I don't even want to say fake Linkin Park because Queen Jazz, the artist who did this, really did a good pastiche without specifically referencing anyone. Mostly Linkin Park, probably, but I want to give it its respect. But yeah, Teen-topia, also in Teen-topia, the person who's being bullied the most, and he does his share of bullying, is Corey. And Corey's page has some sort of diary entry things, and those were pulled from my live journal.
Wow.
Just verbatim. There's one that it's so bad. It's still up. I'd probably, if anyone finds that, I am over, by the way. But, I was a very different person as a teenager.
Right, yeah.
But also, there was one part that is like a survey, and it's like, put an X next to all the places you've kissed someone in the park, in a car. I don't know, all the different possible places. And then he's like 20 and then puts no X on any of them. And then he's like, well, I guess that wasn't so time consuming. And that was just copied and pasted from my pathetic like high school live journal where I was whining about not being kissed. But yeah, so a lot of that was just from, my my own content that I made a long time ago.
There was one element of that is just because there's a lot of like memories coming back just when you talk about these pages, because I remember I was looking for, I think Zane has like a hidden page that you're supposed to find in one of the early missions, but what the page that I found, I think, was first of all was another kid's, because I searched for Zane in like the directory and came up against this other page that was, it might have been Corey. It was someone who was saying like Zane sucks.
Yeah.
And it was a Zane sucks page. And so I went through that, clicking everywhere for like, you get paid for any like moderation you do. So I was like getting harassment. I was like, that's harassment. I was getting paid for it. And one of the funniest things, like, I think this like sums up sort of like the way in which this game is like so self-aware and ridiculous and fun, is he had this animated GIF at the top that's like this crazy text that's saying like Zane sucks, and it's like it's doing the HTML marquee tool thing of going across the page, and when you click on it and get the money, it changes Zane sucks to, what is it? This has been moderated, or
this has been removed due to violation of Hypnospace law or something like that. Yeah.
But it doesn't like delete the image, it just changes the text to that. And then like there's one that was going past really fast that I had to like nail the shot on.
Yeah, that was fun. That page is optional, so I figured, well, let's have a little fun and make it like a really hard to click on one. I should have made it like the smallest font, so it's like going fast. But yeah, yeah, that was fun. We actually changed that a little bit for the console release. I made a version of Hypnospace where I toned. There weren't any swears. Everything is a fake swear. It's like you dipweed or you mother flipping moron or something like that. But I toned down some of the images. Like in the version you played, the Zane Sucks Club. He gets his head chopped off, and there's like cartoony blood shooting everywhere. But my cousin, I wanted to give my cousin, he's 12. I think he's right on the cusp of where his parents would probably see a head cut off thing and be like, no, you're not playing our weird relatives game. So I edited that just for him. We were on vacation and visiting them. So I pulled my laptop out and edited that, and to where he gets punched in the face instead and his two front teeth fall out one at a time.
That's so cool.
And then then conveniently, I guess, we had to submit for console release, so we had to get the PEGI or the ESRB rating. So I figured, you know what? Then we don't got to put there's blood in this dang game.
Right.
And then so I just left it in, and I like the animation better anyway. But I do wonder if someone's gonna be like, you censored your game or something. Hopefully not. I don't think my crowd is like that, but who knows?
Yeah, fair play. I think that's one of the power plays these days, is if you're a developer who somehow manages to not attract that crowd, you're doing the Lord's work. That's like,
we'll see.
Hold on to
we'll
it.
See.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're sort of in that same world as well. We've a really great like community of folks, and we also moderate the hell out of our YouTube channel, which actually helps quite a bit as well.
Our publisher is all about moderating, like very tough dudes. So,
yeah, for sure. Frank, one thing you mentioned to me, which was one of the things that I found hilarious, but I haven't seen as much of, is the Squishers. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah, actually, Jay, like, so the Squishers thing is something that's so amazing when you stumble upon it. Like again, it's so specific to the era. Was Squishers something that was added in like late game development? Was that something at the very beginning? No, we need to have our Pokemon thing in the game because it's such a fun surprise. Like even when I'm playing the game, I'm deep in the mystery. I'll see a Squishers in the corner, click it, and then the giant Squishers sound will explode. Can you talk about just like filling your world in with Squishers? Because again, there's a million beautiful layers to this game.
Oh, well, thank you. But with Squishers, that was one of the first things. And originally, it wasn't going to be a Pokemon-esque thing. It was going to be like a gooey 90s nasty toy, like that's like Gak or some extreme goo toy. But at the time, I hadn't learned 3D very well. In fact, that's why the intro cinematic with those little crazy people flying around, that's why that looks so weird, is because I was just bad at 3D. And that's also why some of the GIFs in the game looked bad, because I was just learning. So, but which was great. It was intentional, but it was also because I was learning. Perfect. But this Squishers was a gooey 90s like slap it on your parents, I don't know, toy, gross. But it later became, for whatever reason, a Pokemon-esque thing. It's also probably the closest thing to a real reference in the game, maybe other than Chowder Man being a little like Kid Rock, I guess. But Squishers is the closest thing to like a real reference, because it has a Game Boy-esque game that goes along with it. But I originally did a few Squishers, like 3 or 4, just for the Kickstarter. And they were originally just these gooey toys. And once I decided, we need more video games in this game world, I guess, I found a person on Tumblr named By9, or I guess that's how you say it, Bynine, and they do a thing called Fakemon, and it's just like a drawing practice thing where they draw original fake Pokemon-esque creatures. And I thought those were really fun. And they also often were a little slimy. So I reached out to them, and they took my design, my 5 original ones, and one that someone who animated, the person who animated Dropsy also did one, Acacia. And also that's a virtual pet coming in a patch, actually. But anyway, so this dude did 24 or 32, something like that, total original Squishers, and I thought they were just brilliant. And then so we reached out to Nelson, who is the narrative designer, and he's a pretty goofy fella, and had him do a rap. I don't remember if I wrote the rap and he recorded it, or if he wrote the thing. I'll have to check on that. But he recorded it, and then I was very inspired to like make a video out of it, because it's real easy to fake this sort of motion graphics. You just put a low frame rate on it and it looks like it's from the 90s, I guess. But so we have a whole like Squishers rap in there, and that, some critics felt like that was because the game is pretty dedicated to there being no real direct references. 1 or 2 critics felt that was too on the nose, but as far as what people seem to enjoy the most, Squishers are like, people love Squishers, and I think the designs are quite clever and stuff. So yeah, Squishers is just a shameless, like, fun, fake Pokemon that are gooey. And there's like I don't know if you read the game review for the game Squishers that's buried in there somewhere, but one day maybe it's a real weird thing. They learn each other's language. They don't kind of fight.
Okay.
But if the one Squisher doesn't know the other Squisher's language, and the one Squisher happens to be a predator, it'll eat your Squisher. So it's a strange thing. But who knows? Maybe one day we'll make a Squisher real fake Game Champ portable Squishers game. Yeah.
I love it. There's one other detail I just have to mention. Pizza Dance is like my favorite thing in the game. The second I saw the Pizza Dance page, it was like, yep, I got on Twitter and I told the world. Like,
explain Pizza Dance for people.
So in Teen-topia, what I love about Teen-topia, it's like very middle school. So there's very like 6th grade, like very young kids. There's like the 8th grade bullies. Like on one page you find a kid and he's like, ha ha ha, check out this pizza dance. It's so funny. Like early viral internet phenomenon. You click on pizza dance and it's like a Chuck E. Cheese-esque page. It's just sloppy pizza gifs and then a incredible 3D pizza gif that's rotating and the most insane song is blaring. It's just pizza dance and they're just saying pizza over and over. And I listen to that song at least once a week.
That song I really liked because that's one of the few songs that had that very tiny guitar sample. It's like, I love the sound of like the electric guitar, like back in MIDI, but they couldn't do these legato long electric guitar notes very well. So it's just like, bam, 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 bam. And I just love that. It's supposed to be aggressive sounding, but it's so short and cute that it's just not. But Pizza Dance has a lot of that and some accordion also, and a kid's voice saying pizza. And yeah, Pizza Dance was going to be a sort of it's our early viral animated GIF thing. And later on in development, it wasn't originally, but later on in development, we decided to make it sponsored by Dr. Pizza pizza place. You know, maybe it's like a Pizza Hut. I don't know what it is. It's a pizza place. And because we really just wanted to make Teen-topia like all advertising to children. So yeah.
Your game prior to this, I mentioned before, Dropsy. It was one of those games that like you could sense that message, right? Like you were making a game, and you were trying to communicate something to players. I've not played enough of Hypnospace. It feels like there's lots of things being sort of like it's stirring a lot of thoughts in my head, but I haven't finished it yet, so I haven't sort of come to any sort of broad conclusion on what I have learned from this game. But going into it, was there something in particular? Because the delta between the sort of heyday of the internet, or those early days, that sort of naivete, the optimism, is so stark in comparison to the quite cynical and challenging internet we find ourselves on these days. Was that something you were trying to harken back to or talk to, or was there a different sort of philosophical message in this game?
Yeah, my games always have a philosophical, ideological thing. I won't go super long into this, but I'm a Christian, and I try to perhaps I'm a heretic to many Christians. I don't know, but I not for this reason, for other reasons, I guess. But whatever. I try to I think people were created in the image of God. And as such, I think everyone, even if maybe they seem boring or vapid or not your kind of person that you would hang out with, I think everyone is infinitely like interesting in their inner world. If you really get to know anybody, right. I think there's something really interesting in there, and often, I think a lot of this comes from just past versions of me where I'm embarrassed or ashamed of how I used to treat people or think about people. Maybe not treat people even, but just you're walking along the street and you see, I don't know, someone and you're like, oh, that's that kind of person. Not my kind of person.
Totally, yeah.
I'm in some way a level above them. And the most small potatoes, like funny example of this is like the teenagers in Teen-topia, how like maybe because they like, I like this anime or I'm into this cool band and these other losers don't know who they are, but I know who they are. And then that gives you something you feel like gives you value or something, even though you're already valuable, maybe. But I mean, not maybe. You're very valuable. But so with Dropsy too, though, Dropsy's about going around to all these NPCs and maybe you have some idea about them, but as you help them with what the problem that they're having is, even though they like run away from you scared and stuff because you're a scary looking clown, you learn about them and you maybe see more about like what's going on in their life and maybe why they are the way they are or something like that. So with Hypnospace, like is very intentional to like, yeah, okay, Zane is this type of dude, and of course he's very young, and maybe he'll grow into someone, maybe he'll learn, because I think maybe a lot of us may have been Zane-esque people in the day, or
absolutely.
But all the characters, there's some, I just I'm not trying to preach, but I just think that this is a reality to me, and I think that maybe that when people are playing, it feels more like they can connect to it more, because it's not trying to be some big like sci-fi. There is sci-fi elements in the lore and everything, but try to keep it all very. I heard this podcast call it small potatoes, like, I don't know, a few months ago. And so now I say that all the time, but it's such a good way to say it. It's all, there's lore for sure, but it's all small scale stuff. And things that are built up to be conspiracies are actually just like the failings of one or two humans, and you can kind of understand why, So it's not like there's no people behaving badly.
Right.
There's people in the game who definitely need to be perhaps punished for their actions or be held accountable for their actions by the end of the game. But I just think it's a truth about people, that everyone's infinitely interesting. And so that's the ideological basis. When I'm making the pages, I'm trying not to be too cynical. It's so easy to like pull up any of these pages, like the boomer motorcycle guy with like the way too loud music and all caps and stuff, and just and on some level perhaps that is a little disrespectful of me just doing that. But as you play the game, there's ideally something that you can find about this dude that will make you go, oh well, this is I can see that this is a real person out there somewhere, so
yeah, it feels in many ways sort of like a neighborhood simulator. Like, it doesn't feel grand in that way. It feels more domestic and more sort of like community in that way. Like it's funny you mentioned that, like you're talking about the psychic lady from earlier. Like, it's that same thing where like the more you unravel about somebody, the more you at least like understand the parts that stood out before, or the parts that made you assume something. But I guess we often don't have the patience these days to, or at least some of us, I certainly fall foul of this, to really give people like the benefit of the doubt or something.
Yeah, or maybe even just the time, I guess, because you talk to so many people every day, you have to assess people somehow. But maybe and there's such a difference between me making some product, a game about this, and then me, the person who interacts with people every day,
right.
So it's I guess with that also in mind, you try to do your best with this kind of shenanigans. But like I said, I don't want to be so. I think when a game wears this on its sleeve so much, people will see that in the copy, and they'll see that in the promotional materials. And maybe it's not bad. Maybe there's an audience for it where people want an overtly like ideological thing like that. There's value to that for sure. But I like that. I guess it's almost a trick, but I like the idea of, oh, look at this, it's so ironic or so whatever, and then you play it, and it's just about finding like the value in some people, some maybe odd people.
Yeah, well, as I grew up Catholic in Ireland, and I don't practice anymore, but I could certainly see the I didn't know that going into it, but certainly those like sort of values and teachings and stuff definitely like sort of simmer there. It reminds me a little bit about, we did a video a couple of months back with the folks who made Genital Jousting, which is basically a game where you're just like having like penises or playing party games, but it's actually the whole thing is a allegory for toxic masculinity. But like they didn't want to tell anyone going in fact, because it looks like the opposite game, and then they sort of do. It's like a bait and switch kind of situation. Obviously that's not necessarily what you're doing with Hypnospace, but do you find
well, those guys our game showed at the same event
in Germany,
really? And I talked to them about that. And it was immediately apparent the similarities, and we also have perhaps the same problem where a lot of people see the trailer, which there's so much, it's hard to process, so many pictures and looks wacky, and I think they had maybe the same issue where it's very hard for maybe a critic going in with what they know from the copy and what they know from the trailer to like get over not taking it as just a big joke, so but I think they were pretty acclaimed for their narrative there after a while, and I think our game didn't have much of I was worried about it, but our game didn't have that problem too much either. So
yeah. And it's good. There's a bigger audience now again. I'm talking too much. Frank, you have 1,000,001 questions. I know for Jay, because we were talking about this for the whole week. Is there any stuff that we've not covered off yet you're thinking about?
I guess I wanted to ask is like, so I saw that with the console version, is there like a big, I think what's it called, Hypnospace Plus? Is there gonna be new content in the game? Any new surprises that you can tease us or invite us to come back into Hypnospace?
Yeah, so Hypnospace Plus is a lot of it is just stuff that was in our Trello, in our checklist, that we could not fit in by the time we released the game. So we figured, well, let's not just drip a bunch of little updates. Let's just make one big update where, this is it, and all the extra features we wanted to add. There's quite a bit. There's like 60 or 70 new pages, which, if you know how the game is structured, you can cut that in a third. But the pages do change over time, so it counts. But there's also some new apps and games, and like for example, Counselor Ronnie, who's the Teen-topia, I'll help you kids out. I'm the cool guy from Merchant Soft, here to help out and keep your kids safe in Teen-topia. He has a whole anti-drug thing now, with T-nubs. And it's our in-universe drug that the teens are taking. And it's also a suppository. But anyway, but he's warning the parents. There's more. I didn't spoil all of it. There's more to the T-nub arc when you get to the end of the game and find out more about why this exists. But so he has a dungeon crawler game, what's called Drug Runners, and you have to run away from the people giving you T-nubs, T-nub. But yeah, there's a lot of little touches like that. A lot of stuff. Just we wanted to add. There's another interactive fiction thing at the end where you go through a scary shopping mall. On this Linda's page, she did a lot of these MS Paint-esque images, so it has you die a lot through just things you find in a shopping mall, like a planter eats you, and pants eat you at a pants store. It's called like the pants store. Anyway, but yeah, so there's a lot of like fun just stuff, and also some secret stuff for later in the game when you get access to more of the secret stuff, people's hidden files and stuff. More of that. So there's a way to access people's files that's not a public thing in the game without spoiling too much. And we figured, let's give some people a little more dimension by giving more of them this little secret directory of files they've uploaded. Just so you can, maybe you see their public page the whole game, and then at the end you see some of their personal files, and then that maybe gives a little more context about them. But yeah, there's new media. There's 2.5 hours of new music by various.
Wow.
Some older acts, some new. Most of it's not even my music, so it's pretty cool. Yep.
It's wild. It seems to have done really well. In terms of looking at the moment on your Steam page, overwhelmingly positive reviews, 98%. Which our friends who've been doing a series with Supergiant Games, they're on that with Hades at the moment, and they can't quite believe it because it's so easy to slip your score on Steam. You can.
Yeah,
cough.
me neither. And it's such a weird game. I'm
Right.
just surprised people don't buy it and go, "What is this?" And we have a few of those, but maybe they know before they buy it. Oh, this is a weird game. I better not. I don't know.
It's wild. Before we talk about the console stuff, how has it done? Obviously, I don't want you have to say numbers or anything, but like, are you satisfied with the reaction to it? It was another Kickstarter game like Drop C, where you had an audience that was looking for it. But how did it do? How were your expectations, and how did it do when it came out last year on PC, Mac, and Linux?
It did very well. For my expectations and for our team, which is basically you could say 3.5 people.
Right.
There's a dude named Corey, which is media. He's not a half person, but he did a lot of things that were a little too technical for us, but he wasn't a consistent part of the team. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting off on a trail here, but it did well enough for, I think, us to work on our next thing.
Excellent.
Which is what I wanted. Yeah, it's done. I will say it's done better than Drop C for sure. So I'm very happy, and I think our publisher has done a pretty darn good job with it too. So
yeah,
I'm
No More
happy with
Robots, based out of the UK, right?
Yeah, No More Robots. They've done a good job. When we got signed with them, they only had one game, which was Descenders, which was a mountain biking game.
Yeah, and that's also got a pretty hardcore community as well.
It's very good, I think.
Yeah.
I don't play sports games, but I like that game.
Big streaming game. People, it's popular.
Yeah, it's great. And but when that was the only game he had at the time, and I'm like, why? Really, the only guy who wants to sign us is the mountain biking game guy? Gee, how is this going to work? But he's really good at, and what's so weird about him is he's like a Pied Piper on Discord. He's like a wizard guy on there. Like most of the people in Descenders community, when we started doing a little promotional ARG leading up to the game's release, most of those people jumped over into our thing and participated. And not only did they do that, but they bought the game and talk about it, and they still hang out. And like, it's just, maybe they're more fans of the publisher than in general than like any specific game.
They're just vibing, just good vibes. And when there's good vibes going, everyone's just Introduce you to my cool new friend over here, Jay. He's got this really fucking weird game.
Yeah, that's what he does, and it works, I think, with all of his games. And it's nice.
That's awesome. I'm gonna let Frank have the last question, but I have one just before that. So, Frank, you think of a good one. My final question is: it's super interesting. This is coming to Switch. It's super interesting. It's coming to PlayStation 4. I think what's incredibly interesting is that it's coming to Game Pass as well. We were talking before we went live that Game Pass is this sort of. It's almost like a sort of a throwback to like back when there were demos where people will play Game Pass games because they're already paying the monthly sub. So whenever a game goes up there's a lot of people who will, play everything. And there's a lot of more people who will definitely be way more considerate of playing something outside of their, comfort zone, especially in games. Like, it's more difficult in many ways for games because the price tag or the time required, people are a little bit sometimes less, likely to test out something that's outside their comfort zone. How excited are you for people to jump into this? Because this is like the perfect game to not know anything about and to jump in. Are you anticipating that you'll have a lot of people jumping into this who wouldn't have otherwise?
I think it's very exciting. I think I got to not watch the Twitch streams a lot because I will be like, click that. That's the hint. Click it. It's right there. But that's just normal. But when there's people who's just, it's not their genre, then that's usually the experience. Sometimes it's a pleasant surprise, but just, it's so fun in general watching people. I don't want to say even more than them buying it, because I like when that happens. But it's so fun watching people repost content or stuff that and be like, oh, this is me or something. Stuff that I in the game thought sometimes was a little weak, or they'll post and just it's the biggest deal of the game to them. Maybe it's just something that connects to them, But just watching a whole bunch of people play this thing you worked so long on, all of a sudden, I think that's going to be fun. And Game Pass, I think that's going to be real fun to watch, because there's going to be probably a lot of them when Game Pass comes out. So
I guess my last question is there any place online that's as pure as Hypnospace Outlaw? Are people still making crazy HTML pages somewhere? Like I want to make my own crazy HTML stuff. I want to find just positive, silly internet online communities. I'm wondering, are there any cool places you hang out online, or is the dream still out there?
I don't hang out there, but do you know NeoCities?
Oh.
There's a website called NeoCities, and they have their own. It's not a WYSIWYG page builder. It's not a drag and drop, but it is like an HTML editor and web rings. You can and you can search community pages, and it's really just trying to bring back that dream of
my God,
neighborhoods and a community personal web pages. Yeah, but you're.
Oh my God, I'm on a Crystalis fan page. This is amazing.
Oh, I've seen it, and it looks so nice too, doesn't it?
This is wild.
But just about that, I miss so much. Not that this era was all the way better. You had a lot of investors throwing money at these startup garage whiz kid dudes who didn't really have the best intentions. But what the people did with the blank slate they were given with just a blank web page, with social media, you put your name and you put your age and it goes where it's supposed to. You just had a blank page and you had to figure out something. What do I do with this? Do I share a recipe? Do I what the heck do I do with this? It's a blank thing. And all the different ways, some people contextualized it like it was a book and next chapter, especially the very early pages. People didn't know even how to have people navigate. So many, here, go to my channel, go to my different channels, my channel about Dragon Ball Z. I don't know. And so what a interesting time when the technology was just super new and people were just sharing, something they made. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But searching for anything, finding what you want sucked. Couldn't find anything you wanted. But it was neat.
Excellent. Jay, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your neat creation with us. Hypnospace Outlaw. It's currently available on PC. You can pick it up on Steam and probably a bunch of other places. It's also, by the time this goes live, it will be up on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and you can even play it on your Switch. Jay, thank you so much. Any closing thoughts before we send you off back into the German evening and you can enjoy your weekend?
Well, Frank and Danny, I wanted to thank you guys for this great conversation and the nice, good questions. And no, just if you check the game out, I hope you have fun. And yeah. Oh, excellent. Hey, I got one more.
Go for it.
Okay. There are these people, Olia Lealina and Dragon Espenshide. And they do a project called 1 terabyte of the kilobyte age. And it's a blog about all of these old GeoCities pages. And they even go and interview some of the people that made these old pages 20 years ago. And it's just I don't know, a guy who worked as a cook or something. But they're interviewing about, what were you thinking when you made your page? It's just such an amazing, charming, and a lot of Y2K era.
Am I on the right one? Is it a Tumblr?
Yeah. I think it's a Tumblr.
I'm gonna put this in the show notes as well. So if anyone,
it's excellent. Yeah. I would like to suggest people read that if they're interested in any of this.
Further reading.
Yes, further reading. Yes.
Excellent. Jay, thanks so much for coming on. Frank, always a pleasure to have you on. And thanks to everyone for listening to the podcast this week, or watching if you're watching us here on youtube.com/noclip video. Thanks so much for supporting the show. Patreon.com/noclip to help us fund more game documentaries on this production. Have a good week. Go play Hypnospace Outlaw, and we'll see you next time. Take care.